Hello.
Hey, man.
You can hear me?
I can. You sound great.
Excellent.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to a special interview, a follow-up, a 2.0, if you will, of my conversation with the legend, the man, Chris Metzen. Chris, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Scott.
It's been too long, dude. I saw you briefly at BlizzCon, but and we talk
Oh
here and
yeah,
there on text and stuff, but it's been a while, and it's nice to finally catch up.
it has. It's kind of hard to keep track of time, to be honest with you. It just goes by so fast these days.
Yeah. It's good to see you then, though. You had this crazy cool beard, and then Chris got had to have surgery, and we were all concerned about you and stuff. But it all went well, sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
had a,
you had to
you
shave
know,
that beard.
not to get too technical, a bunch of bad discs, I guess I had had forever,
Mm,
and the bone spurs were starting to, like cut my spinal cord a little bit, and just off and on pain and numbness. So yeah, they went in and did a bunch of crazy cutting and grafting of metals. So my cyborg parts are working really well. It's faster, stronger,
oh, that's great, dude. Modern
doing great.
technology, modern medicine is a
Pretty
thing.
amazing.
Yeah, it's the thing to behold.
Pretty amazing. It was kind of the first thing I've ever been in for. I've been to, I don't know, in and out of urgent cares and things for years, but I've never really had a procedure done. So it's pretty wild, but the crew was really good and
That's
they
great.
took good care of me.
That's awesome. So not to make a direct reference, but not unlike the orcs in the next World of Warcraft expansion, you now have the option to stand up straight and not hunch over, and that's
Wow.
fantastic.
Wow, dude. That was pretty deft.
Well, I
Working
mean,
that in.
it's the thing. It's a weird little tiny detail they've added to this thing that I
Yeah.
actually really like. Orcs standing up are really kind of badass. I mean, I have to admit, there's a little temptation to ask you if you think that's canonical enough and it's okay for them to
Yeah,
not
I
be
mean,
all
I,
hunched
I,
over.
I think it's awesome. I mean, going back, that's kind of how I always drew him. If I was just kind of doodling or, kind of, developing a character, I kind of liked him a little more upright,
Hmm.
which, in my opinion, gave our orcs a little more uh, distinctiveness, I guess. But the over time, the artwork of the models and all that stuff, being a little more ape-like,
Yeah,
worked fine.
yeah, it was all right.
But I kind of like, like whenever I would draw Thrall, for instance, I'd draw him a little more upright, where the texture set, his model, until recently was more based on the old orcs, who's all hunched over with the Doomhammer armor. So now we have, I guess, since Cataclysm, the more updated version of him, which is a little more upright.
Yeah, and he's got his sweet necklace, which everyone likes.
That's right.
It's probably not the right term, but it. I'll call.
Necklace is
Is
fine.
that fine? Okay.
Which is an homage, back to. So I'll just tell you for nothing. The greatest fighting game ever made, in
Okay.
my humble opinion,
Okay.
is Samurai Showdown 2 for the Neo Geo.
It's a great game.
It's an
I agree.
ancient system,
Yeah.
but Blizzard was pretty much built on Samurai Showdown 2. Through the early games we developed up through Warcraft 2. We played. It's like the whole shop. Again, I think back in those days, we're like 20, 20, maybe 20, 25 people.
Yeah.
We would break down every day at lunch and just rotate in and out of Samurai Showdown. So one of the characters in that game, Wan Fu, was this big, brute, ogre-looking dude with a giant sword, but he had this awesome necklace of, magic balls. So, just
Wow, this is an origin story I didn't expect to get today.
always
That's
got a kick out of that.
fantastic.
So that's where Thrall's uh, balls come from.
Yeah.
That'll be a in about 2 seconds. But yeah, a lot of those weird affects, kind of visual affects, are from I don't know, a lot of things that inspired us over time. So
A lot of
there,
people,
there's a little trivia there for you.
sure, a lot of people see me going into this interview and they think I'm not going to come out with anything that's, notable. And I would just like to submit in the first 5 minutes we've done it.
Oh yeah,
We've already done it. So anything from
the
here down,
origin
it's
of
all downhill, man.
balls.
Yeah. We don't have to think about it from here on out. Well, that's awesome. Last we talked, you were super busy doing a whole lot of Warhammer painting and stuff. Is that still going on? Were you able to do that while you were down with the back thing? Like, how's that been?
Not as much. I was down for, well, define down. They they demanded that I not move around too much for about 4 months.
Jeez.
Kind of like, you can't pick up anything heavier than a coffee cup or something like that, as they explain it to me. The pins in my vertebrae, bone, it can be a little bit like drywall. Or if you move around too much, it's going to bore out,
Mm,
you know, where the pins rest, and they want that bone to grow real snug around the metal.
mm.
So hey, no screwing around, no jumping jacks, no driving the razor, no jumping off of cliffs or whatever. So it was really rough because I mean, we got a at that time, got 1-year-old at home, and who needs to be put in the bathtub and needs to be picked up. It was Cat got a lot of the literally the heavy lifting, and I'm just kind of sitting there going, oh, I guess I'll just watch another sitcom and enjoy my frappuccino. I don't
Sure,
know.
why not? Hey, dude, you get the
Uh,
demanded 4 months to take it easy. That's the time to take
it's
it.
just super hard for me. Oh God, I hate it. I hate not inactivity. I do leisure really well, but I hate when you know there's stuff to be done and I'm useless. I
Yeah,
can't stand the feeling of useless. So I did that for a while, for a number of months, and kind of made it through.
yeah, yeah.
And God bless Kat, who kind of held it all up and took care of everybody. And
Well,
um,
she's the bomb. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, the only reason you and I are talking voice to voice right now, she probably got Skype all working for you, didn't she?
yeah, you know what? Today, it's like the first time this ever happened. I didn't have to lean on her for tech support. Uh, she just had a bunch of dental work done, so she was all doped up when I picked her up this morning. Just kind of do, some kind of helping her in the house, and
Sure.
and she God bless this girl. She's like, well, how's your interview going to go? We got to set up the microphones. We've done a bunch of got a new computer system that broke. I'm like, I don't even know if we have microphones. I don't know how to use that. Cat, how do I find Skype? And I just had to figure it out today. So here we are, baby.
That's
I
great, man. Look
I
at
pulled it
you.
together.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
God, it's like solo hot wire in the Falcon.
Yeah, nice job. You don't even have a Wookiee up top who's doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Speaking of Wookiees, actually, this is a good transition to something I wanted to talk to you about, and you had actually kind of mentioned it in a little text back and forth. But what a crazy thing, what a crazy time we live in. And the last time we spoke is not all that different, but I don't know that we've ever lived in a time that's a little bit more of an embarrassment of riches than we live in now in terms of
Yeah.
our nerd culture, the geeky entertainment we like, the stuff we're into is like at this all-time fevered pitch, and it's almost hard to decide where you want your attention to go because you're gonna get a new Star Wars movie, you're gonna get two, three,
Regardless. Yeah.
yeah, no matter what. Like imagine saying that 25 years ago. You'd have looked at me funny.
Oh, you couldn't have imagined it.
No, it's a totally different kind of world.
Let alone all these TV shows in development, and it's just like you said, an embarrassment of riches
Yeah,
in terms of content.
yeah, really. And not only that, like as an old time, I use the term old loosely, okay, because you're a young guy, but you've been reading comics your whole life, and
Get off of my lawn.
when you were a younger guy, and if somebody would have come up to you and said, "Yo, Chris, I'll bet you that in the mid to late 2000s, we're gonna have the most popular movies are going to be based on B tier Marvel characters that nobody really cares too much about in terms of sales. They won't be X-Men, they won't be Spider-Man. It'll be the Avengers, and it'll be Ant-Man, it'll be the Wasp. Like, I don't think you would have believed it. I know I wouldn't have.
No.
I didn't think they were
No,
capable.
I would have laughed it right out of town.
Yeah.
No.
So we live in this time now where that stuff worked, and it's crazy. Like, it's so crazy how many places your eyeballs can be pulled and get something good. It isn't so much that there's one good thing and a lot of trash. It's mostly good, and
it's everywhere and ever present.
yeah, and it's all, yes, that's a great way to put it. Video games, same way. It's no longer 2 or 3 titles you pay attention to in a quarter. It's now I'm checking Steam on Monday to see what landed this week, and I'm checking
Yeah.
the Switch store on Tuesday, and it's crazy.
Yeah, the constant new trailers for content, new, it's sometimes I wonder, I hang out with, my kids a lot, partially because I don't really leave the house a whole lot. And damn it, I've been training them to be, little alpha geeks. They're on their way. They've got a few of their merit badges.
Right.
and they know what's up. And so, it's like I watch these things come out, and I have my own sense of like excitedness or interest level for different franchises that are launching, or different moves Marvel makes, different moves that Star Wars makes. And so there's my own kind of read on that, being I'll be 45 this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long lifetime of looking at product and the flow of product and the flow of exciting ideas. Um, and obviously for us, or folks our age, when we were kids, it just obviously it just wasn't like this.
Right. Right.
And so I look at my Rugrats and I go, what must it be like growing up with this sense that this is normal? This is just the way it is. Like whatever ideas you can think of in your head, there would be just an insane, from things you've liked or experienced. Like there may be some giant summer blockbuster feature film based on that wild idea. Like we didn't have this, when we were young.
Not even close. I
And
mean, I
so
remember
I like,
cable TV came along. I about lost my mind, and I
yeah,
thought this is unlike anything Grandpa
this is
ever
crazy.
had.
This
Yeah.
stuff's still on. It's 24 hours a day. I'm getting movies. I don't like them, but they're sure there. Yeah, it was just insane. So I wonder sometimes that they appreciate just how miraculous this time is, and I say that to them all the time. So and then kids a little older than them, or I don't know, man. The 20 somethings these days, like do
Sure.
they get how incredible this is? And then you have to step back and consider, well, there's so much hyper nerdy content that never would have been made 30 years ago, never could have been conceived 30 years ago. But these days, not all of it is A plus content necessarily.
Hmm.
A lot of it is, a lot of it isn't.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's kind of a trick. People get pretty emotional about things these days, especially when they are displeased, or when expressions of content do not match their expectations. It's hard to watch these days for me. I kind of I'm on Facebook and Twitter and things like that, and just to watch people get just absolutely mauled, because their movie or their comic or their the way they kind of developed their game or whatever, if it displeases some you know um, number of people out there, then they are loud and um,
Do you think that's a? Do you think
oftentimes
that's like a
oftentimes
like?
vicious.
Right. Right. Do you think it's like a? It's like a false ownership thing. Like, when
Yeah.
I quite like Last Jedi. Like, I know that there's a large contingent of Star Wars nerds that did not come away too pleased with that movie. I saw it twice in theaters. I enjoyed it even more the second time. Like, I was in the camp of this is pretty good, and I like what Ryan
Sure.
Johnson is doing. Uh, but it did that particular experience felt like there were a lot of people coming out of the woodwork going, this is my Star Wars, and I don't like what you've done with my Star Wars, so therefore I'm
Right.
angry at all of you.
Right. Not my Luke.
Yeah, not my Luke, not my Star Wars. We're gonna do a crowd campaign to refund a remake of it, or I'll never go to Star Wars again, or in some extreme cases, better watch your back, Ryan Johnson. You know
Totally.
that kind of stuff.
Uh,
I've never
yeah,
understood it.
man.
I don't get
It's
it. It's
it's
crazy.
it's absolutely crazy, and it's something I try and talk to my kids about, because they're aware, um, and I just try and I want to talk about the Star Wars thing in a sec, but there's an interesting theme there. As an elder statesman geek,
Yeah.
I try to be appreciative of the cool shit when it's happening, right? Not all of it's awesome. Um, and we are geeks, right? We want to sit and we want to talk, we want to dissect, kind of these things, and oh god, what if it had done this, or what about this possibility, or oof, there's like 20 minutes in the middle there. It was a little much. Maybe that could have been edited. This is our thing.
Yeah.
We dissect everything, and there is, I think, sometimes a like a product of superiority that comes out in that kind of geek psychology, right? Because this is the of all the crazy things that happen in the world for geeks, like this is the kind of stuff that we have um, deep investment in, and a lot of feelings about, and our in how we use our minds and imaginations to kind of pick things apart and weigh them with each other. It's kind of part of what, being a geek is, kind of loving a thing and then just dissecting it and, you know, you know, chewing on the gristle of it all.
Sure. And
But I
and
think,
building those worlds more than they've been built. Like
yeah,
yeah.
kind of, fanfic and, fan art and just kind of taking things down the line. Like that's a glorious part of what all this is. But sometimes it feels these days like, especially with the Ryan Johnson thing, it was like, it just shocked me that there was so much hatred for that guy when I don't know. My personal feeling was I had a blast with that movie. I had a lot of fun in the theater watching it because I had no expectation. I had no idea where it was going to go.
Right.
And I thought he crafted a really solid film experience. Like it's really like take a couple steps back from whether you wanted Luke to act that way or not. That film is so well crafted. The shots, the pacing, the effects. I mean, there was. It's just beautifully built. If I'm talking smack at all, I felt like the casino scene in the middle was a little draggy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I like the content, like where it went, and they're on the ship, and the good guys and bad guys, discussion, of the war profiteers. That's all cool hooks for Star Wars. Like I'm in, but if I'm, you know, throwing inside rocks at it, like, you could have
Probably could have cut
maybe
that
just cut,
down.
cut it down a little bit and kept your
Sure.
pace
Yeah.
moving. But so that's the kind of geeky stuff I think. But the real sacred cow is that people just hated the depiction. Or at least one element I've heard is just the depiction of Luke.
Yeah.
And I don't know what people expected or whatever. But oh God. But then again, I've got a thing for like old broken soldiers, right? Like
Right.
I loved that portrayal, and to me, it evoked a lot of that, like Yoda and Obi-Wan choosing exile. These grizzled old dudes, putting their faith in, this kid that shows up out of nowhere. And to me, that really struck me that like Luke had landed in that same space. I think there's a line in the movie. He's like, "Why do you think I came to the most unfindable planet in the universe? I came here to die."
Yeah.
And that just rocked me. I'm like, wow, where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, Yoda slaps him around a little bit and goes, dude, pull your head out of your ass. This girl is important. You need to, I guess the theme there in Luke's turn was that even your failures, you know, have to be taught and passed forward. I thought that was wow.
Yeah.
How,
It was good.
how stupidly Jedi is that, right? Yeah, that's some deep, weird, you know,
Yeah.
and so I just had a blast with it, right? And the kids had a blast with it. I don't know, we walked out going, "Damn, can't wait for the next one." That was awesome.
Yeah.
And then if you're on the internet at all, just hearing all the vitriol and the hate for this guy, it's like it did rattle me a little bit in terms of there's just no respect for that guy as an artist for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
They simply wanted the product to be their way
Right.
and utterly missed the things that artist was bringing to the tableau of Star Wars,
And you just don't
which
have to
I really
when that
appreciated.
happens, you don't have to would you agree with this that you don't it's okay to watch it and go, I thought the middle bit of the casino was a little draggy, but you still consumed it as it is, and you made your own. You had your own feelings about it,
Yeah,
and I just don't understand how
but I'm not
you.
going to throw darts at the director, because here's a whole nother thing. Here's a whole nother. There are some directors I'll tool, with my friends or whatever. I'm not going to get on the internet and
Right.
burn people down. What's the that frustrates me.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to my friends or Kat. We talk about this stuff all the time.
Sure.
And I'll throw dog poo at Michael Bay or whatever. From time to time. I used to really like Michael Bay's movies.
Same.
And it's just they've just gotten increasingly kind of
Yeah.
and and here you go, right? This is the same kind of thing. I love me some Transformers. I love me some Optimus Prime in particular. I do not like when that character is just absolutely hammered. But I'm not going to go burn dude's house down. I'm not going to write a bunch of shitty letters or whatever. Like as an artist, he'll figure his shit out or he won't.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
really good way to look
he'll
at
do
it.
really great work, or he won't. The simple fact is, I don't go to Transformers movies anymore. Although Bumblebee looks really fun.
Yeah.
Um, and so in that way, I'm not out to get this guy. He hasn't wronged me.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I just
No, you're
curse?
fine. You swear all you want. It's all good.
Um,
Whatever you
oh,
want to
thank
do.
goodness. Um, I'm not going to tool that guy out in public or whatever, or rake him through the coal. Hello.
Hey, man.
He'll figure his shit out, or he won't.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
really good way to look
he'll
at
do
it.
really great work, or he won't. The good guys and bad guys.
Never
Yeah,
understood it.
man.
I don't get it. It's
It's
crazy.
it's absolutely crazy, and it's something I try and talk to my kids about. Because they're aware, um, and I just try and I want to talk about the Star Wars thing in a sec, but there's an interesting theme there. As an elder statesman geek,
Yeah.
I try to be appreciative of the cool shit when it's happening. Right? Not all of it's awesome. Um, and we are geeks, right? We want to sit and we want to talk, we want to dissect, kind of these things. And oh God, what if it had done this, or what about, this possibility, or oof, there's like 20 minutes in the middle there. It was a little much. Maybe that could have been edited. This is our thing.
Yeah.
We dissect everything, and there is, I think, sometimes a like a product of superiority that comes out in that kind of geek psychology, right? Because this is the of all the crazy things that happen in the world for geeks, like this is the kind of stuff that we have um, deep investment in and a lot of feelings about, and our in how we use our minds and imaginations to kind of pick things apart and weigh them with each other. It's kind of part of what being a geek is, kind of loving a thing and then just dissecting it and you know you know chewing on the gristle of it all.
Sure. And
But I
and
think,
building those worlds more than they've been built. Like
yeah,
yeah.
kind of, fanfic and fan art and just kind of taking things down the line. Like that's a glorious part of what all this is. But sometimes it feels these days like, especially with the Ryan Johnson thing, it was like it just shocked me that there was so much hatred for that guy when I don't know. My personal feeling was I had a blast with that movie. I had a lot of fun in the theater watching it because I had no expectation. I had no idea where it was going to go.
Right.
And I thought he crafted a really solid film experience. Like it's really like take a couple steps back from whether you wanted Luke to act that way or not. That film is so well crafted. That the shots, the pacing, the effects. I mean, there was. It's just beautifully built. If I'm talking smack at all, I felt like the casino scene in the middle was a little draggy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I like the content, like where it went, and they're on the ship, and the good guys and bad guys, discussion, of the war profiteers. That's all cool hooks for Star Wars. Like I'm in, but if I'm, you know, throwing inside rocks at it, like, you could have
Probably could have cut
maybe
that
just cut,
down.
cut it down a little bit and kept your
Sure.
pace
Yeah.
moving. But so that's the kind of geeky stuff I think. But the real sacred cow is that people just hated the depiction. Or at least one element I've heard is just the depiction of Luke.
Yeah.
And I don't know what people expected or whatever. But oh God. But then again, I've got a thing for like old broken soldiers, right? Like
Right.
I loved that portrayal, and to me, it evoked a lot of that, like Yoda and Obi-Wan choosing exile. These grizzled old dudes, putting their faith in, this kid that shows up out of nowhere. And to me, that really struck me that like Luke had landed in that same space. I think there's a line in the movie. He's like, "Why do you think I came to the most unfindable planet in the universe? I came here to die."
Yeah.
And that just rocked me. I'm like, wow, where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, Yoda slaps him around a little bit and goes, dude, pull your head out of your ass. This girl is important. You need to, I guess the theme there in Luke's turn was that even your failures, you know, have to be taught and passed forward. I thought that was wow.
Yeah, it was good.
How stupidly Jedi is that, right? Yeah, that's some deep, weird, you know.
Yeah,
And so I just had a blast with it, right? And then the kids had a blast with it. I don't know, we walked out going, damn, can't wait for the next one. That was awesome.
yeah,
And then if you're on the internet at all, just hearing all the vitriol and the hate for this guy, it's like it did rattle me a little bit in terms of there's just no respect for that guy as an artist for a lot of people.
hmm,
They simply wanted the product to be their way
right.
and utterly missed the things that that artist was bringing to the tableau of Star Wars,
And you just don't have
which
to.
I really
When that
appreciated.
happens, you don't have to. Would you agree with this? That you don't. It's okay to watch it and go, I thought the middle bit of the casino was a little draggy, but you still consumed it as it is, and you made your own. You had your own feelings about it,
Yeah,
and I just don't understand how
but I'm not
you.
going to throw darts at the director, because here's a whole nother thing. Here's a whole nother. There are some directors I'll tool, with my friends or whatever. I'm not going to get on the internet and
Right.
burn people down. What's the That frustrates me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll talk to my friends or Kat. We talk about this stuff all the time.
Sure.
And I'll throw dog poo at Michael Bay or whatever. From time to time. I used to really like Michael Bay's movies.
Same.
And it's just they've just gotten increasingly kind of
Yeah.
and and here you go, right? This is the same kind of thing. I love me some Transformers. I love me some Optimus Prime in particular. I do not like when that character is just absolutely hammered. But I'm not going to go burn dude's house down. I'm not going to write a bunch of shitty letters or whatever. Like as an artist, he'll figure his shit out or he won't.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
really good way to look
he'll
at
do
it.
really great work or he won't. The simple fact is I don't go to Transformers movies anymore, although Bumblebee looks really fun.
Yeah.
Um, and so in that way, I'm not out to get this guy. He hasn't wronged me.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I just
No, you're
curse?
fine. You swear all you want. It's all good.
Um,
Whatever you want to do.
goodness. Um, I'm not going to tool that guy out in public or whatever, or rake him through the coals. I'm just not going to buy a ticket to his next gig.
Right. Or if I am, it's going to be based on, other factors like I heard an interview where he said, "Yeah, we weren't happy with how this turned
Yeah,
out," and
totally,
yeah,
totally,
you take it as the full package, not just this one-off 2 hours, and then make the
totally.
rest of your life's decisions based on that.
And that's the thing about like Ryan Johnson or anyone else that gets raked over the coals. It's like if you sat down and talked to that any reasonable geek, if you sat down and had lunch with that guy, as improbable as that sounds, some busy Hollywood dude, right?
Yeah,
And you're just talking about like, well, why this choice or why that choice? You go, oh, well, I get that, huh?
yeah, yeah,
I never thought of that before because I've seen inside the machine. Not just making games, and there's a lot of it that's analogous to making film. But I got that like a really awesome opportunity to see the making of the Warcraft film, and you had everyone involved on it was like a passionate expert.
right,
It was an excellent team. Duncan's a stud. The production group was studly. I mean, the art group, ILM. There was no lack of talent there, and seeing inside the process of there's just so many mouths to feed. Different. Different. The studio folks wanting more of this, and the production company wanting a little more of this, and how is this going to read to people, and just the sheer back and forth chaos of how any movie gets made. Like I understand that you don't always get literally what you set out to get. You have to compromise all the time,
yeah,
um, even on Star Wars movies. And when anything comes out of just absolute pure vision, I can't recall. I remember when the original Matrix movie came out, and dude, I don't remember what year that was. Was that mid '90s
90,
maybe?
99, I want to say, right at
Okay,
the end of the year,
okay,
right in the
later.
decade. Yeah,
Do you remember when the Matrix came out? I think we all went to the theater, and no one really knew what to expect. Um, you just heard a little bit of buzz. Hey, you got to go see this thing. I don't even know how to tell you about it. I don't even know how to define it. And we went to the theater and watched The Matrix and came out with our minds blown. I was
yeah,
like, what was that? It's like a cyberpunk kung fu super style. You could world within a world. You just couldn't even define it clearly, but it was so much fun and it was so fresh, and it just about everything about it was um, just perfect.
I agree. It's on
And
my list of perfect movies. It's the right
yeah,
word. Yeah, I love it.
and even then, knowing nothing about anything, I remember thinking like, wow, how hard must it have been to get that made?
Yeah,
Because it didn't feel like there was a lot of compromise going on in that thing. But now I know, time and tide and some experience, that's what happens to most films. And so I don't know. I have a real it is an interesting thought. I was about to say I have a real empathy for anyone that's trying to create big entertainment, whether it's games or movies or comics or whatever. Um, it's hard. It's hard to get your vision out. It's hard to do great stuff. You don't always get to have it the way you exactly wanted it. There will always be people in the mix, whether they're protecting the money investment or they just simply have power and want weird shit in your stuff. Um,
I always wonder
there is
about that too.
absolutely
How many times is this stuff just luck? Like at the end of the day, did the first Matrix did they just get lucky that they got everything out that they wanted to get out, despite all the compromises you make, even in that case?
maybe because it was so below the radar, right? And it hit
Mm-hmm.
at just the right time, and that's what people would respond to. There's so many variables, right?
Yeah,
And so I always try and stop and just scale back on everything and just remember that there's artists there that have worked really hard to build X, to build that thing.
yeah,
And it may not always have gone to plan. And it's a miracle that anything cool gets made at all. Like that's a fact.
yeah.
But I remember, going back to, I hope this is okay to talk about. It's just my opinion. I won't reveal anything, but it just in terms of respect. But I remember when we were doing Diablo 3, and there was a bunch of controversy around this move or this move or this change or this direction, and the community really, the Diablo community at the time really just rolled, Jay Wilson over the coals,
They
and
did. Yeah,
it was such a crazy thing to watch because these people don't know Jay. He's one of the sweetest, coolest, most chill people you'd ever meet. Hardworking dude who bled for his team. Who sometimes had to champion things that he wasn't completely behind because the team just is totally behind it. And I watched the anonymous internet. Not everybody. It's a vocal minority.
right.
But these people were a lot of these people were just, and again, I don't know who these people are. I'm being very broad, but these people were savages to my friend,
Yeah,
and it was so hard to watch.
I
And
remember that. That was
remember
rough.
that?
That was
And
rough.
that kind of shit. That's one of the first ones that really, obviously it was close to home, and it's like he wasn't complete. He just happened to be the public face at that time.
Yeah. Well,
I'm thinking,
you're no stranger to this either. I mean, you certainly felt some of this kind of heat, right? Before.
I guess I would say I've been very, very lucky all these years because I was also like Jay, also one of the public faces of the company, and I had done a number of things over the years that were stupid, that forced or I'd say something stupid, and the fan base would call me out. So there were plenty of those, but I felt those were earned. Like red shirt guy and
Oh, right.
what was that, false dot or whatever, and I could go back and explain to you my thought. Like I knew what was up with all those characters. It's just being on that stage in that moment with that kid. I mixed two characters up. I think I was thinking of the character of Duncan. I'm like, wait a minute, he just fell off the griffin. I'm like, oh, that's the wrong guy. But I couldn't complete the circuit of thought, and the
Right.
fan base goes, you don't know your shit at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, all right, any of you kids get up here and let's do some trivia, right?
Sure.
We'll
Yeah.
see who doesn't know Warcraft shit.
That's what I remember thinking.
Uh,
By the way, that same guy, the red shirt guy, fell asleep on my couch at Undertacular one year. Total,
that's so rad.
total
That's so
side
random
note. Total
and
side note.
so rad. He's a
Unconnected.
nice kid.
Yeah, he was a
Uh,
nice guy, but he slept on my couch. But anyway.
oh, that's so rad.
Yeah.
I love that kid. Only met him a couple times, but I was very lucky over the years because for whatever reason, I never really got caught up in serious hate. I think some of my moves made people upset over time, and there was always um, oh God, I hate this, but the green Jesus bullshit,
I was gonna ask you about that.
the
You made
Mary
it. Yeah,
Sue
you don't love that.
brawl and all that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, th- there was always a lot of that, and it would make me a little crazy. But it wasn't. it wasn't hateful. Maybe
Right.
sometimes it was, but whatever. You know, it wasn't ever at a volume that I always felt very embraced by our community, and I was always very appreciative of that because it doesn't take a genius to see how fast it turns and how hard it would be to kind of reestablish trust or relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't know; those things always really informed how I looked at the relationship with artists and fandom. And I guess sometimes what worries me about what's happening these days, because it does feel like it's at a fever pitch and it feels like it's, around every other corner, someone's getting just
Yeah.
mercilessly destroyed.
Ramped up.
When what did they really set out to do? What do you think Ryan Johnson set out to do? What do you think Ryan Johnson loves?
I,
My guesses there are, dude loves Star Wars.
yeah.
Dude got most golden opportunity ever to tell a Star Wars story, to keep the ball rolling. And I don't know the man. I never met him. I can only guess that dude approached it with religious zeal and fidelity, and wanted to do the best he could. And
Hmm.
he's his own guy. He's an artist. He has his own instincts. He has his own, like, oh, I always wanted to do this in a Star Wars story, or you know what, I'm going to take it this way. And I had to step back and go, dude's an artist. This is what we need.
Yeah.
Like even if I didn't like that movie, and I did, um, who am I to burn this dude down?
Right. And we need the artists to do it.
It's
I don't.
ridiculous.
We don't want algorithmic Star Wars movies. I don't.
Dude, dude.
You know.
And by the way, if 10,000 nerds are raging that it sucks, that's 10,000 radically different ideas on how it wouldn't suck.
Yeah.
Which one do you pick?
Right. See, that was
Well,
where I. That's where I got into
it
the scrum.
just it, it
Yeah.
just gets absolutely ridiculous. And imagine, if you will, enough people talk shit on enough artists, you know what I mean, that are really just trying to, engage and entertain and, express themselves. How many artists? Oh yeah, here's a weird thought. With the climate the way it is, and I'm sure this isn't as big of a deal. This is a very overly dramatic statement. It's not that big of a deal. But imagine a time where, what if you wanted to be an artist?
Yeah.
What if you wanted to be a filmmaker? What if you wanted to make video games, but you grew up on the internet that literally stoned people that displeased you?
Right.
I mean, literally picked up rocks and threw enough rocks to kill a person in the street, right?
Yeah.
The nerd community stones people uh, that it's displeased by. What kind of incentive is that for young people of imagination coming up right now?
Yeah. There isn't any. Like that's a scary. It's a scary thing. I've got a daughter who's very creative. She wants to
Mm-hmm.
do all sorts of cool stuff. She sees this. She also sees that it's heightened or amplified against her particular gender. Like she feels it in a very acute way. And I have to back her and go, Carter, we got this. You're better than most of the stuff I see. Don't let these voices get to you. Like I say all that, but she's growing up with it. She sees how harsh it can be, and
Yeah,
I don't blame her for feeling that way.
it's like, you know, 60, 70 years ago, artists or whatever in various countries. Actually, it still happens today. Having to hide what they do because it's against the law. Because the powers that control where you live
Yeah.
might suppress your voice or suppress your art. How upside down is it that you would be afraid of your own nerdy people? And again, that's way overly dramatized. Um,
I think you make a good point, though. I
but
don't
that
think,
kind of stuff
yeah,
interests me, dude.
yeah,
Like how many other things feel upside down these days? How quickly does it, have do conventions turn?
sure,
So I guess in short, you know, geeks love to break stuff down and disassemble the radio and put it back together, and that's kind of part of the fun of being nerdy. And we like to jam and we like to, like where else would this have gone? That's really healthy. And fan art and fanfic and where might this go and this and that, like that's glorious. It is essentially creative. It is essentially relational.
right.
um, but sometimes it feels like it's like this appalling lack of empathy, and not for each other but for the artists that are standing up there, trying to keep the discussion going, and they're being stoned in the streets, and it just feels like a lack of empathy for that person and their heart and their imagination and their soul and their spin on things. It's like, take a step back and take a breath, right? It's like, at what point in the world did anyone get promised that everything would please you? That ain't life. And
No.
it's almost like with the kids, it's like, when you want to rage or bitch about something or whatever, take the opportunity. If you hated Last Jedi,
Yeah.
well, then turn a friend on to an expression of Star Wars you loved.
Yeah. Give them.
You may not like Last Jedi, but you got to see this comic I read in the '90s called Dark Empire. It's so good. Or you got to go back and read, canon or not, these Timmy Zahn,
Yeah.
Dark Empire, not Dark, good Lord, Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
It's like, take the opportunity to engage positively. You know what I mean? Like pay forward elements of the franchise that you loved, so that people get turned on to that instead of like, Last Jedi sucked, I'm never watching Star Wars again. Like, bullshit. You're going to be right back in the theater next time. Really? Really? You'll never watch it
Yeah,
again?
I
Not my Star
guarantee.
Wars?
Guaranteed.
Really?
Yeah, I don't believe
Uh,
anyone who tells me that back in
oh,
the
come on.
when they were
It's
saying
just
that.
utter bullshit.
Even if
Uh,
they stick to it, it makes me even sadder. Like, I mean, here's a good example. Recently, this was, I bring this up because I want to kind of get to this part of the creativity of it. Sometimes the work that's created is the spark that starts the fire. For example, I shouldn't use the term fire, but your friend and mine, Christy Golden, who's doing fantastic work at Blizzard, and she's awesome, and I love her books, and I've interviewed her a couple times, and she's just awesome. I just love her to death. She took all kinds of heat, for lack of a better term, because of the tree burning thing and all the stuff that's going on pre-patch for Battle for Azeroth. And while we don't have to get into all that stuff specifically, decisions that are made for those particular story arcs are made months, sometimes years in advance, because there's a game to make. And raking her over the coals, a lot of people did that. I keep using fire references. I should stop doing that. But anyway,
it works.
it does work, but they're giving her
that
all this
that kind
heat.
of thing, like that in particular, it makes me really mad on behalf of my friend, and it makes me embarrassed on behalf of the community that's talking that way. Um, Christy's an important voice on that team.
Yeah.
And again, she's in the franchise development, story and franchise development group, who helps the game devs expand the fiction of the video game by making cinematics and comics and books and novellas and all that stuff. So Christy is one of the, in my opinion, I was trying to hire her for years. She's an amazing voice and an amazing story crafter.
Yeah.
But where things get planted down, like, hey, we're gonna light the tree on fire, and Sylvanas is gonna go, you know,
She's going to go full.
dastardly,
Yeah.
right? Whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's discussion rings within the game team, and they're cooking on that for a while to the point where it reaches a fevered pitch, and they come to story and franchise dev to help them express the direction.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy's not singularly in charge of the Warcraft storyline. She's an excellent craftsman, and like I said, an important voice. But like, it, that whole argument or that whole kind of wave of viciousness was just so
Yeah.
not only utterly misplaced, but unfair,
Yeah.
unjust,
Yeah.
and
Unjust is a
vicious.
great way to put it. I'm glad you said unjust. It felt very unjust. And not only that, I just was screaming at, at no one in particular, but in my own head at these people saying, my gosh, have some patience also. We don't know where any of this is going. Like, I was all in as soon as it happened. It wasn't
Yeah,
like I was going, yeah,
yeah.
genocide in the tree. It's not really the point.
Well,
The point is,
it's like, I'll tell you, dude. I don't have any special insight into how this is all going to play out. I ducked out about 2 years ago. Literally the last Warcraft thing I worked on was the intro where Anduin does the big res,
oh, right.
the pre-render intro for the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's over 2.5 years ago. We started baking this thing. So that was literally the last thing I, was part of. So the events that are playing out now, which I've had a blast with, are, to me, one of y'all. I'm a fan. I'm playing it, watching it, experiencing it for the first time, and really digging it. But I tweeted, I don't know, maybe it was a week ago, in the midst of all this stuff, and I can't remember what I said, but
Yeah.
trying to be very politic, I said, everybody just take a breath.
Yeah.
You have no idea how this is going to play out. You're throwing out, the baby with the bathwater, and you just see the very tip of the iceberg. Let the damn thing play out,
Right.
which was my thought. And this happens to some degree every expansion.
Yeah.
Everyone's just alarmist and losing their minds. And this sucks. You've ruined it. You've ruined the horde. You've ruined everything. It's all shit. And then,
And then
a
it's
couple
not.
months later,
Yeah.
we're in the meat of the real product, and people are like, "Oh, this is the most Warcraft it's been forever." Um, let the craftsmen do their thing. Have some faith. Have some patience, and above all, have some empathy for these human beings, these artists that are giving you everything they got. You may not agree with every call and every move and every turn of story or whatever,
Right.
but let it play out and remember that these are people too. It's just basic empathy. It's like if you just stopped and like, gosh, would I want people to talk this way about me?
Yeah. It seems simple, doesn't it?
Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the simplest thing. It's like the internet mob just starts getting going, and it's like there's no. Someone told me once, there's no dads on the internet. Like it needs a giant spanking or something. Like chill out. It's not how you act.
Yeah. I feel like that all the time. I do feel like it's my kids sometimes. And I feel like I'm having to, at least in my followership in particular, the freaking out about the burning of that tree, and me saying, guys, in Blizzard I trust, give this a minute. And sure enough, swing around to the old soldier cinematic, which I've never done full rendered
No,
pre-patch
how
thing.
glorious was that?
That was
Yeah,
incredible. And it came out of nowhere, and people were like, oh, they threw that together last minute. I'm like, y'all cannot, you cannot
yeah,
say that to me.
yeah, yeah.
And
10-month minimum to do
yeah,
one of those.
yeah, those guys are. I mean, that's just not how it works. So, despite all of that,
So the timing of that was
it was incredible.
ironic and perfect.
It was perfect in every way, and it was really good. And Sourfang on the tip, on the tips of everyone's tongue now. Everyone loves that guy. And Zappy Boy, or whatever his real name is now the big hot hit of the internet. And and the same people I heard screaming blood and terror are all turned now. They're going, oh yeah, now this I can get behind this guy. Even the game itself, the pre-patch game itself says, hey, do you want to save people or go right out there and blow up more stuff? And I went, I want to save people. I'm Sourfang. Like they're doing things to me emotionally. And I got to thinking about this. If you're in a movie and it starts and you have a middle and you have an end, and there's a part of that in the movie where you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they went there. You are lucky enough that within an hour and a half, you're done and you've got resolution.
Yeah.
In a game type situation, or even in television series, we have long breaks between seasons and, everything's 12 episodes now and big cliffhangers and stuff. You kind of have a different problem. I can finish a book, I can finish a movie, but I can't just finish the game. I see Sylvanas do her thing, and I'm left going, oh, man.
You can respond to it or not.
Right.
You can be drawn in or not.
Right.
It's a completely different kind of engagement, which is a lot of times why you see so much passion.
Yeah.
And you go back to what you initially started talking about, which is this sense of ownership, which we, thought about for years. We kind of came into our own as this phenomenon was occurring, developing, gestating. And just that idea that I always said, like, yeah, we're all in it together. You in that audience at BlizzCon or whatever, or out there, watching from home, may not have been on the dev team, but we're all kind of in this experience together. We all have a role to play to respond or engage and keep it moving. And I do think so. Let's go to Ryan Johnson or whatever,
Sure.
or any artist working in popular worlds. Is that a way to put it? I don't have a word for
No, that's a way.
franchise feels so stupid.
I think it's a great way to look at it. I mean, I wish. I wish.
It's like Dick Tracy's a franchise, but I'm not all that passionate about
right.
waiting for the next A+ director to come in and rebuild a Dick Tracy.
Right.
And God bless him if they do. But in these big popular worlds, there is a responsibility to do it right. I talked to Duncan Jones forever about Warcraft, and this guy was committed to honoring what people loved about it. If not all the details shift, especially for film, in translating film, from game.
Right.
But I felt very confident that he got it and he loved it, and he wanted to make the fan base proud, and build something that they would recognize and um, you know, feel part of, and Ryan Johnson, whoever, like clearly that guy loves Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
and had every intention of building something, with all the soul and mythology and imagination that he had grown up with, you know, um, having seen the original trilogy. Like there's no, just can't be any question in our minds, that there is a responsibility, but sometimes the expressions, it's for as many different artists as there are in the world. Sometimes the expressions aren't necessarily going to match expectation or mass expectation. It's like you also observe there's all sorts of people out there that didn't necessarily have any expectation, but when people start talking so much shit, it creates this snowball effect. And other people are like, yeah, that's right. They haven't even seen it yet,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Pick anything as an example.
Yeah.
I see that happening all the time. People just going batshit crazy. What was one of the ones that happened? I'm a big Marvel fan, right? So the Secret Empire storyline from a few years ago, where Hydra kind of takes over the United States. It's kind of a radical direction. Like, whoa, where are you guys going? And they
Mm-hmm.
made, Cap is revealed to have been a Hydra agent. Spoilers, he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't the entire
Um,
time. Also,
but
he died
before,
once, but really, guess what? Spoilers, he didn't really die. Like, yeah,
right?
welcome to comics.
It wasn't really Steve,
Yeah.
but like before the thing even gets rolling, and I'm sitting there going, "Whoa, this is radical." I don't even know. It made me feel creepy. I mean, this isn't the Cap I love, but okay, Marvel, let's see where we go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's radical.
Yeah.
But before it's like the second issue even comes out, people have made up their minds, and it's the most fascinating thing. And I guess at a commercial level, they get to right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to buy it, but they didn't stop talking shit. They didn't see where it went, and the vitriol didn't really stop either. It just created this really weird kind of circuit of negativity, and I just use that as a random example, but we sure can get ourselves into a tizzy. And again, I just come back to this idea that just you just got to stop and take a breath and remember that these are human beings on the other side of the expression.
Right.
Um, would you want to be raked over coals in that way?
Yeah.
Um,
I love the idea of getting mad. Like, for example, I loved getting mad. I was genuinely angry with Sylvanas. I was
mm,
not angry with her creators, her current writers, any of the decision makers. Not angry with them. I'm mad at her because she did a thing that's terrible in the context of the world. That's fun. Like, it's fun to go, whoa, not my horde. What's this about? It's a great. It was. I was having so much fun with that, despite the fact that it was such this such dark turn.
right.
Um, but take any other example like that. Captain America being supposedly a secret agent for the wrong side for a long time. I'm happy to be upset at him, at others in the story. Like that's good storytelling.
It's
When
part
you're,
of the experience.
yeah, you're making me emotionally invested. I wonder sometimes, I'm no expert in this and I have nothing to hold this up, but I'm just going to say it. I just wonder sometimes if people are having a hard time separating that. Like they can't separate the anger they're feeling that Sylvanas would commit basically genocide from the people who made her do that. They have a hard time saying, well, let the fiction be the fiction and let me be angry
Right.
within the fiction. They
Right.
can't let that anger just stay there. I don't know why. That's always just been a thing that's been easy for me to do, and I get passionate and freaked out about it. Like, I love that. That's great. It's like the minute she did it, I went, "Holy shit! What does this even mean that she did
Right.
this?"
Right.
And it was so exciting. And as soon as I flipped on Twitter or somewhere just to kind of see what the reactions were, I was like, "Oh man!" And friends of mine even were just like, I don't like where they're taking. Like, okay, well, all right, just give it. And then I spent the weekend trying to explain to everybody why my point of view is whatever, and I had people mad at me and for feeling that way, and it just kind of curtailed itself into a big messy hoo ha.
Yeah. It's like I'm the same way. Like I watched it, and I played the scenario the other day, and there's the beat where I don't know how much of this is spoilery, but like the well, how do you guys handle spoilers on your podcast?
If they're, we'll warn them right now. Hey, if you don't want to hear this thing, we're going to say, And if you're a true WoW fan, this is not even a spoiler. So go for it.
So the thing that happened with Sarfang,
Oh yeah.
um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, take him away kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there going, where is this? And in my head, again, I have no inside information. This is purely just, I'm just riffing as a player. I'm like, oh God, I so want him to take her out. He will be the solution. Somehow he's gonna, he's gonna get free. He's gonna get some backup, and Sorfang's gonna stand up for the old school horror. It's like because I want that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's funny separating the part of myself that was there for all this and is just a player. Just a
Yeah.
oh
It must be really weird for you. I wanted to ask you
dude.
about that. Is it weird?
I'm sitting there like, oh, Sorfang, go find Thrall, dude, bring him back. And
Yeah.
then I had this weird out of body moment of like, oh God, I wonder if I get that acting gig.
Yeah, I love that, dude. I love that you get to be
but
that guy now. It's so cool that you get to be
it's
that
so
guy.
funny. Yeah, I'm just a civilian, dude. So it's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, bring Thrall back.
Were you that? How were you the day when you're like, whoa, there's a hamster in Overwatch? Same deal. You didn't know about him, right?
Well, that one's funny in that, I think it was Arnold. One of the guys had done sketches of that character. There's plenty of characters that have come out since I've been gone that were totally new.
Yeah.
Orisa and Moira. That I had never even heard. They simply were not discussed during my time. They're completely new expressions. But Wrecking Ball was one of those. It was like an early concept. What if there was this ball and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it pleased me that that old idea got done so well.
Yeah. They found a way to do it. It's awesome.
But it is fun watching, kind of watching these games roll out and how things take shape and um, it's just absolute joy. What was the last one? The like the Reinhardt cinematic when that came out. Again, that's an idea that we had years ago, but it's like by the time it came out, I had nothing to do with that cinematic at all, other than we had talked about some of the story behind it years before. And then the idea of Brigitte as a player character. Holy cow. I remember the jam sessions were like, what if he had a squire?
Yeah.
This plucky girl that, kind of keeps him in